You breathe in through the nose to capacity, and at the top there you take a sharp inhale through the nose and then sigh. And again.
Their day's gone. It's like, it's been so bad that I might as well finish it with a bottle of wine or a couple of beers, where actually what they don't see is that return on investment. So that couple of minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes is actually trying to it's not going to totally reverse it, but it's going to put you in a better state.
I've had a bash at it.
Yeah.
What did it do for you, Andy?
Stop me snoring,
Yeah.
mainly.
Yeah,
So my wife's very happy and wants to say thank you to you both for
That's
that,
all right.
because
You're
it can't have been easy.
But using that tape during those 7, hopefully, hours that you're sleeping will really help to promote that deep rest.
Getting daylight, getting out into nature, social connection. These are the things that I think human beings, Sam, as you say, are crying out for. Hi, my name's Andy Rhodes. Welcome to ResetU, the podcast. I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Nathan Gardner, founder of ResetU and CEO.
And our guests today are an amazing pair of people, Sam Murray, Miranda Bailey from The Breath Connection. We're going to be talking to you about the amazing work that you do inside and outside of policing. So if you want to just introduce yourself, Miranda, you go first. Who are you, where are you from, and what's going on for you at the moment?
So, hi, I'm Miranda. And Sam normally goes first, so you throw me slightly.
I've got you in it there.
my background, I guess, so we formed the Breath Connection over 5 years ago now. Prior to that, I've always been interested in health, and for many years I was a nutritional therapist, and I practiced something called functional medicine, which is really trying to dig down into, if we get ill, why do we get ill? So exploring all the different facets that interplay with our health. And on that journey, stress was too big for me to ignore. So I trained in breathwork.
Okay.
And when I met Sam, we had a shared love of breathwork and cold water. And so we formed the Breath Connection, and that's why I'm sitting here today.
Brilliant. Thanks. Sam, over to you.
Okay, so my journey started, I suppose, really briefly when I was a 16-year-old boy. My dad was in the SBS in the Royal Marines, and I went down that path. So at 17, I became a commando, stayed in those roles, those high-octane jobs, and and really struggled towards when I got into my 40s, young children. And the wheels came off, and I was, after a series of incidents, and it's quite serious incidents, and I ended up in hospital. And then I came through and found, luckily through a military charity, the Rock to Recovery, I found breathwork and cold water, and it quite literally saved my life. And then I realised I wanted to share this with everyone, my community being veterans first, and actually realising a lot of my friends went into the police or into the fire brigade or into prison. but
Police, they went into police or they went to prison. That says a lot. Yeah.
But on seriously though, a lot of them did join the emergency services, and I thought, right, this needs to go in to these guys. These guys and girls who are doing these amazing jobs. I need to get it in, and I found Miranda there not long after. And we formed the Breath Connection.
Fantastic. And we'll maybe touch a little bit more on Rock to Recovery and Curtis Palmer project as we get through in the podcast, because that is amazing stuff in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a great story behind that. But in terms of your work in policing then, right, Breath Connection, just give us an insight into what you've been doing in policing, where you've been working, and the types of groups of people that you've been working with on your programme, because I know there's some forces have been real advocates of what you do. I went on one of your sessions. We'll maybe touch on that later as well, which was absolutely brilliant. But just a bit of backstory about what you've been doing in policing.
Okay, well, that brings the Curtis Palmer programme in then, because I met an incredible woman called Helen Barnett on this journey, looking to help support the service, the emergency services. And Helen, really briefly, was in the Met Police, armed response, single mother, big job in itself. 3 serious incidents in policing, shot, stabbed 3 times, and in 2 IRA explosions back to back. So loads of trauma. And I met Helen and started to do the bigger breathwork practices with her and realised that actually, no, these are bringing some trauma on within Helen and lots of anxieties. But the cold water, we got in some cold water with Helen, and that changed straight away. That made her, and we'll talk about why, but she felt better. But the bigger practices, the Wim Hof I was doing at the time, was bringing on some trauma, and I thought, okay, I need to look at how we adapt that. And then I found, through Helen, Damien Isherwood, who's an inspector at Thames Valley Police.
Thames Valley Police, yeah.
And he runs CEO of the Curtis Palmer program. An incredible guy, a mountain leader, and his heart is just trying to serve his officers and veterans. So he's the Curtis Palmer program. Curtis Palmer was a serving PC, and he had cancer, and in his last stages, he did a series of things like a parachute jump and raising money, and then that's what, with the money they'd raised when he passed away, sadly, they set up the Curtis Palmer program.
Right, wow.
And Damien Isherwood is a driving force behind that. Helen Barnett being an ambassador, he saw an opportunity. He saw me being an ex-Royal Marine. There was a link there, and he said, "Right, what you're doing is incredible, but we need to work out how we can make this work." And that's when I'd met Miranda at this point, and I said, "Well, here's the brain." I wasn't trained at that point in breathwork. I am now, but Miranda comes into this story then, and so we start to make a science-backed sort of package together.
Yeah.
And over the last 5 years, I think we've now done 25 10-day breathwork courses. So one of the techniques that we practice is dynamic breathwork, which is based on Wim Hof, but it is much more inward focused, I would say. And so we ran our very first course with the Curtis Palmer program. Actually, Damien Isherwood has made it one of the stepping stones, the first stepping stones for the people wanting to do the expeditions that they offer as well. So people come through and do that 10-day course, and we got a lot of anecdotal, obviously, feedback about the impact that this course was having with people. Yeah. So all sorts of people coming through that course, and we've run bespoke courses.
And that's an online course, isn't it? So you do it in the morning.
Yep, 10 days.
And you run it over 10 days,
Yeah, Monday to Friday, over 2 weeks. And it's dynamic breathwork, and we encourage people to get into cold water. Yeah. But on the back of that, through various different people that we'd met, we were introduced then to the Force Wellbeing team at Thames Valley Police. And Ginny Simonet, who was always our champion, she arranged for a 12-week initiative. And actually, we were looking at some of the statistics that she gathered on that 12-week initiative, at how impactful it was. Yeah. And it was phenomenal. Yeah. People going back to work, having been off with burnout, lots of really, really positive impact through doing that. And then on the back of that 12-week initiative, the Thames Valley Police employed us for 2 consecutive 12-month periods where we breathed with the entire force. It was open to the entire force, online, with a range of different... So we did dynamic breath work, but we then realised that some of the bigger breathwork techniques can be too much for some people. And so what we then did was we delivered some quieter, more gentle breathwork practices to help really regulate the nervous system, because we know that coppers are just exposed to so much trauma, aren't they? That for some people their nervous systems are hugely upregulated, and then it's important to bring them back into balance ultimately.
And breaking new ground here, right? Introducing breathwork at scale in policing, and not this year. Last year you got an Oscar Award for that. Quite rightly so as well, because we wanted to share what you've been doing with other people. Nathan's been working with us on Oscar for 3 years, not been in policing before. Your perspective, Nathan, on breathwork? You've got some interesting areas to sort of explore with Miranda and Sam, haven't you, yourself, that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, definitely. I think, firstly, coming from a place where I've not been, as Andy said, not working in that kind of high-stress policing environment. I think I was phrased as the man on the street, sort of coming into this. But looking at the challenges within wellbeing, and we've done over the last couple of years a lot of work around ANS management, the autonomic nervous system management. And I was so amazed by the lack of awareness within policing of themselves, of trying to get people to understand, fight and flight, rest and digest. And we've used various bits of technology over the last couple of years to try and highlight that. And one of the big things that we did last year, we did some work with a tech company who had a really good feature within their app where they could do a 3-minute spot check. And when we were giving people these wristbands, they'd put them on, and we'd get them to sit still, which was a challenge on its own, by the way, just getting a police officer to sit still for 3 minutes, not touch their phone. And then we get them, and then in the app, it would pop up and it would show breathing rate, it showed heart rate, it showed heart rate variability. And this was basically a check on their nervous system. And then one of the things that I started doing, and by the way, I am not qualified in breath work, okay? But I'd ask them to change their breathing rate. I'd say deeper breaths, control. And what was so impactful was that they could see their heart rate variability metric move. And this was the whole point.
Amazing.
During those 3 minutes, we could shift the dial. We could move the needle, as been spoke about at the police conference recently, about how we can try and get people to understand. The challenge then was trying to get people from that environment to go away and try and practice it. And what I found over the last few years is when we have this conversation around breath work, meditation. So we're going to kind of kick off there. Is it the same or is it different? Are they merged? How can we kind of do it? Because what I found is that if I ask police officers, I've done a lot of work with firearms team. If I ask the firearms team, we're going to do some meditation. Oh, wow. I'm going to get some funny looks. But when I was using this 3-minute spot check, totally different. It was really, really impactful when I asked them to change their breathing. So where are we on that one?
Well, I'm going to just really quickly come in, and it's a brilliant question. So meditation, people overthink it, which is mad because it's about not thinking. So my mum, she's been through some traumatic times in her life over the 84 years, and knitting has always been her thing. So I'd suggest that when she's been doing it recently, when she's knitting, she's in the moment, and she's really in that moment. So there's a form of meditation. Breath work is a way like a bridge to get you into meditation. So I'd say the oldest form of meditation is Vipassana, which we both are students in, and that to get into Vipassana, into the deep meditation, you use your breath, called Anapana. So it's a very simple following your breath. No, you're not guiding it. You're just watching your breath. So I'd say breathwork is a bridge in order to get into meditation.
It's a great description. I like that. I really do.
I think that meditation often, when you think about it, it is about sitting in a quiet space, emptying your mind, isn't it? About that state of emptiness.
Yeah.
And I think that breathwork does differ from that. What I love about breathwork is that we could all be sitting here having this conversation, but within that, we can also have one part of our awareness on the way that we're breathing and noticing where breath patterns increase and maybe induce a little sense of nervousness or stress, but then being able to slow it down and deepen it, and that will alter the state of your nervous system. So there is a combined path within them both.
And this is where, the course I attended that you invited me to, which was in an amazing little place just outside Manchester, very near to where you were brought up.
Yeah,
I think, Sam. Yeah, and there were some firearms officers from a Northwest Force there. Generally, as you say, Nathan, difficult job, tough job, often unlikely to reach out. Sometimes I think that's changing massively, evidenced by that. When we were in the session, I think this point came up, didn't it? And you talked a lot about it. You can deploy this, and you can choose to deploy it if you learn to become quite competent at it. So we're talking a lot about recovery and how we get that ANS balance back, either in the moment or when we've come off shift and we're sat at home, we can't detach, even in between jobs. In terms of deploying it in that session, just talk me through what you think is the normal sort of shift that you see in people. So how come, for example, those 10 officers agreed to be there, sat there in the tracksuits, on a yoga mat, in a church hall, in the middle of nowhere? How did that happen? Why were they there? And what do you think really appealed to them about what you do?
One of the firearms officers who was there has done a lot of our
Big advocate.
Yeah. He just felt and experienced the benefits of practicing.
Yeah.
So he obviously championed us.
And they trust him.
And they trust him.
Because he's the peer.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and they've obviously seen a difference in him as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. It's that experience. Someone's experienced it who they trust.
Correct.
I sort of hook with my backstory. I'll hook them in because they'll say, okay, he's an ex. I wasn't in the police, but I sort of understand that I was in the commandos and
the armed forces. Yeah.
So I hook them in with that. But then we've had some of the strongest men I've known. And I mentioned one of them, Stuart Codling.
Stuart. Yeah,
Stuart.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a giant man in stature, but in heart.
Yeah.
And he's head of fire. One of the firearms guys at Thames Valley Police. And when someone like Stuart then experiences it, when we can hook someone like Stuart in, and he experiences it, and then it gives permission to the other men to say, okay, well if he's doing it, it's going to be okay. And that's the same with Simon. And I think that's what's growing within our community. We're getting really strong characters, and I'm saying men, but we've got Helen as well.
Yeah.
Helen is a strong, really strong woman I've met, been through so much, and she said this stuff works. So then other people are going, okay, well if it's good enough for them, I'm going to give this a go. And once you've done it, once you've experienced the power of it, you're hooked, because it works.
Because this is one of the things, and Nathan will want to jump in now. We're rethinking completely organisational support for wellbeing, whatever you want to call it, workplace health support. Because what we know people say to us is, listen, if I bust my knee, the job needs to pay for me to go and get it fixed, see a physio and rehab. When it comes to my mental health resilience, fatigue, there are so many other factors playing in, and it's a very unique combination. And people are saying to don't particularly want to talk to the job about that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've got this worry it's going to catch me out somewhere, and somewhere it's going to turn up on an application form or a promotion process. Understandable concerns from people. Yet what we're hearing from you, which we hear from a lot of people on the front line of wellbeing, as I like to call it, is trust, peers, psychological safety, my own choices. And the nature-based therapies, all those other things are appearing to be what people are very, very interested in. Not necessarily a route down to see a therapist. That's not necessarily what everybody wants or needs. And so they're telling us that loud and clear. What's the sort of shift you've seen in people? Because I was seeing people who were quite emotional. They had physical injuries, and they were saying that feels a bit different after that session we did. What mainly are you seeing shifting in people when you do your breath work with them?
That's a really difficult question to answer, because the peculiar thing about breath work is that because it does work on the nervous system and the stress response, is that dysregulation can express in a variety of different ways.
Yeah.
So some people get a lot of inflammation and pain, so let's just say. Other people might experience that more as depression and anxiety, that dysregulation. So if you start to then bring regulation in, what they see is a resolution in their personal issue. So it is a hard question to answer.
It's very unique to each individual.
It's unique, but I think that across the board, what we tend to see is people, feel calmer, which is a huge thing. They sleep better.
Yeah.
They have that sense of being able to have agency. So they're no longer kind of not knowing what to do. They can work with their breath, and they alter the state of feeling. So it's
like this mastery, control of your emotional state actually in itself is a positive.
and physical
aspect.
state. I mean, obviously your stress response and the cortisol response
Physical,
is huge in terms of, impact on all body systems, from, heart to pain and muscular issues.
Yeah.
So
But the other for me personally, because I don't know if we can talk about this here, but I tried to take my own life
Yeah.
a couple of times, and one was really serious, and I ended up for 6 months in Step Hill Hospital, and I came out of there, on my knees with talking therapies, with pharmaceutical interventions, numbing me. I wasn't there for my kids. I was just numbed again. And it was only when I swapped that to breathwork and found it. And this is what so my beauty is that on these 10-day breathing courses, especially, I say these because we get to really dig deep. Over the years, we've had many, and I'm going to say men, because they're the ones who've come back to me and spoke to me, who they were going to take, they've said I was going to take my own life till this was the last, I've tried everything. And someone had said, try this course, and they've done it, and they've come back afterwards and said,
Game changer for
it's
them.
a game changer. I now don't just live, I actually thrive, and we still keep in touch with everyone in one way, but it's that shifts the power. The bigger breath practices, they can just shift that when you need it in the moment, and it's actually giving that person the power back, because they're realizing that it's not out there, the answer. We're going to be here and show you this, but actually the answer's staring you right back in the face. You're the one giving them the tools. So.
And we did one of those bigger breath practices, didn't we?
Yeah.
And that was an incredibly strange feeling, but it shifted my mindset. So unfortunately, I needed the loo. And leapt up the minute I'd finished and nearly fell over, which I think worried you because I ran out of the room, didn't I? Well, there was nothing to worry about. But I wonder whether we can. Do you want to try a bit of it? Now we've got the experts in the room. Not that one.
not that one.
Not that one.
Not that one, because it takes too long anyway for the podcast. But just try a bit of breath work, because people who are watching this or listening to it might think, what exactly are they talking about? How accessible is it?
Yeah,
I fancy that.
Yeah, because I think just to interject, I think one of the things that I've seen and speaking to a lot of officers and staff over the last few years is that time's always an issue. Time's a big constraint and barrier to doing these type of things. Time's kind of like the go-to. I haven't got time to do that. I haven't got time to eat well. I haven't got time to exercise. I haven't got time to hydrate. And these are the things that we're trying to sort of get them to put in the foundations. Interesting what you said, Miranda, about the kind of the build-up of stress and cortisol spikes. What we've been trying to do the last few years is educate people on their day. If your day looks like this, i.e. exposed to high stress, I'm going to generalise about caffeine, because I always do. Not everyone drinks caffeine, I know, but people are overstimulating on caffeine to mask the poor sleep they had the night before. Therefore, they're generally poorly hydrated, and then they're probably skipping meals. So actually their nervous system, by the time they get home, is shot.
Yeah, and then they use alcohol to kind of down-regulate.
That was the last part. And then the last part of the day is, I've had a bad day, pass me the beer, pass me the wine, right? And they're hoping that's going to give them the relaxation part. And then we're getting into bed, and then it's that kind of the phone's there, it's the distraction. But I've always amazed with, they could do all those things, but they can't find 5 minutes to do something that could help them sleep better and therefore recover better. So what's the kind of, before we get into that, what would you say is an investment of time, frequency of this kind of practice?
I'd quickly be really pretentious and quote Buddha, Gautama Buddha here, and say, and I say this to everyone, chief inspectors, chief constables, who are all too busy. And I always say, well, Buddha said every man should meditate for 20 minutes a day, except for the busy man. He should meditate for an hour. So I'm always pretty strict. I say, if you can't find time for your own self-care, then you're missing the whole. You're no good to anyone. But I'd say 20 minutes in the morning, minimum.
Yeah. It is an interesting question, because we get asked that a lot, and we get the same feedback. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, people say, I haven't got time for that. Yeah. There is an alternative, which is to do it more frequently for less time. If you can drop your stress response and come into parasympathetic element of your nervous system frequently throughout the day, you are creating that nervous system flexibility. So if you can give it, we often say to people, what habits are you already doing? Everybody goes to the toilet, everybody puts the kettle on, everybody gets into their car. If you can spend 2 minutes in those spaces and breathe more slowly, more deeply through the nose, then you are influencing you're positively influencing your nervous system. So do that instead.
Yeah. So a couple of scenarios here that you're going to pretend that we're these people.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to have you people actually in our patrol car, our contact centre, telling us how to do this for a few minutes. I'm a response officer. I've just been to a series of really difficult jobs, a lot of conflict, maybe some exposed to trauma, maybe a dead body, something like that. Or I'm a contact centre call handler, and maybe just had a string of really bad calls where I've heard stuff on there and I'm on to the next call, and I'm lucky to get a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
The police officer hasn't got any break. They're sat in the car in between jobs. They're pulled over. We're those people. Take us through what might help us reset.
Okay. In all of those scenarios, you're very likely to be breathing shallowly and into your chest.
Heart rate up.
Heart rate's up, yeah. Everything,
Yeah.
the nervous system is upregulated. But the important thing is that elevated breathing respiration rate.
'Cause I'm in fight or flight, right?
Yeah, you're in fight or flight. So what you really want to do is to start to slow that breath cycle down. And one of the techniques that has been shown to influence respiration rate, but also things like cortisol, is the physiological sigh. So it's a two-part inhale followed by a sigh, and you're sort of leaning into a longer exhalation, because whenever we breathe in, heart rate goes up. So when our respiration goes up, it is elevating the stress response. Yeah. When we can learn how to just exhale a little more slowly, then we're bringing heart rate down, and that has this impact on our whole state of feeling. So you breathe in through the nose to capacity, and at the top there you take a sharp inhale through the nose and then sigh. And again.
I do a lot of sighing at home.
I think a lot of us do it instinctively when we're stressed.
Yeah, I do exactly the same.
But when we learn this technique, it's 3 or 4 breaths like this, and it will bring that state of stress down. Yeah. Open mouth, discharging that exhalation, slowing that out breath down. Do you feel it? Can you feel that? And tends to get this
it's
corresponding.
You said that, Nathan. You do it naturally. It's a body, and whistling as well, humming. All these things are our body's way of down-regulating. You know, we teach the B breath as well, which is literally just humming, because by proxy you are extending your exhalation, so that brings heart rate down, but you're activating the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the key avenue into your parasympathetic nervous system, and a lot of people who are chronically stressed just don't know how to activate their parasympathetic. They don't know how to feel calmer. So things like gargling, but humming is a powerful one. Again, you can do this when you're in the toilet or getting into your car driving. You can just bring that in.
Yeah, because we spoke about this the last couple of years about trying to give officers and staff tools and techniques. We've always remained that we don't tell them how to live their life. What we're trying to do is give them frameworks and systems that are available that they can easily pick up and adapt. And one of those was about the end of that challenging day, as I mentioned, and what they can do to try and, it's not going to repair. And this is some of the comments that I've had previously. It's sort of like, they feel that their day's gone. It's like, it's been so bad that I might as well finish it with a bottle of wine or a couple of beers, where actually what they don't see is that return on investment. So that couple of minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes is actually trying to sort of, it's not going to totally reverse it, but it's going to put you in a better state. It's going to allow you to try and sort of bring that system back down, get yourself back into a state of calmness, because it changes everything, doesn't it? It changes our mood, it changes our, in terms of hormones, in terms of appetite, food, and this is all the things that will impact then how we sleep and how we're going to wake up. So when we look at this from a reset perspective, because it's been a big focus of ours, I'm going to ask you both. I'll start with you, Miranda. What's your go-to for resetting yourself in terms of what's your sort of number one? I know you're probably going to say breathwork, but is there something else in terms of in your life? Is this something that you find? Is it something physically, mentally, hobbies? Love to know a little bit more.
So I think my go-to is breath work, so coherent breathing without question, largely because whenever I'm stressed, the thing to go is my sleep. It always expresses in that way. And so coherent breathing at the end of the day really helps to remove any sleep anxiety, so worries about not getting to sleep. And it just makes me feel hugely calm right before bed. But there are a number of other things that I do to reset. So I love a sauna. I love cold water, but I like that whole contrast therapy. And getting nature is just the big thing. Getting out. We live in the middle of the city, so it's not as accessible as other places, but getting to the local park, walking, being out in sunlight or natural light in the morning, I find really helpful, again, because of its capacity to help with my evening sleep, which sounds contradictory, but it resets the circadian rhythm. So I think that's it. Nature, hot and cold, and breath work, they're my key elements.
Go-tos.
She's just stolen mine. You just copy me. Breath work is as soon as I wake up in the morning, when we grab people, I wish I could take the phones off them. And when we do our courses, that's what we try and get them into. So first thing, that as soon as I know I'm awake, I go straight into 20 minutes of coherent breathing, and we can maybe touch on that because it's so important. But I do 20 minutes of that as a meditation, so that's it. So breath work, second, cold water for me. It's my saviour. It's absolutely, without a doubt, saved me. It's why I'm sitting here. So cold water, I'm in it. Open water swimming, I love doing that. That's another thing. So I'm getting all of it there. And the hills, I love being up a mountain or climbing in the hills. I was born in the hills, and I just nature, connected, because we are nature. We just forget it. And when we become disconnected from it, all the things we see happening now are happening because we are actually part of that whole system. So becoming part of that system, whether it's in the sea, in a lake, or in anything like that, connecting with it in a mountain, that's my go-to thing.
Nathan's a cold tubber.
Yeah.
I got a cheap one at home to use. Really calms me down. But I used to do a lot of open water swimming.
Yeah.
Still do every now and again. And I did it for sport, actually. But every now and again, I achieved that state of, this is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Whilst not really, that wasn't the reason I was doing it. And so I know when we did talk about cold water for a minute, if we can, because when we did your session up there, you had the cold tubs there. You had some at the Oskilo conference of the week. It was pouring it down outside. But we've still got plenty of people doing it, right?
We did.
And it's another one of those things where people go, oh no, I hate cold water, I don't like it. I know people who've got serious PTSD, and it is the only thing that's worked for them. Not everybody, because people go where they want to get their solutions right, but these people have tried everything, and cold water has been a game changer for them. That's something that we're seeing more and more interest in. We're talking about it all the time now, because what we're trying to make accessible in a private space for people is to make their own choices. And what people are saying to us is, I want to choose to do things like nature-based therapy, social prescribing, as we would call it in NHS, getting daylight, getting out into nature, social connection. These are the things that I think human beings, Sam, as you say, are crying out for, because they've become removed from them. And there's a massive opportunity for us to reintroduce that into the blue light services to help people with this really important and demanding job they do. So cold water, you always say it's not essential to do cold water, but you always do it after your breath work in-person sessions, and you also do a retreat, don't you, in Anglesey, which I believe is near a waterfall, which sounds even better than a cold tub. Talk us through how the waterfall works.
Well, we found a beautiful place.
Found a waterfall.
We found a waterfall. It's Plas Cadant, which is on Anglesey, which is in itself beautiful. It's a beautiful place. But it's got its own gardens, and it's got its own forest, and then it's got its own river, with 2 waterfalls, but one of them we go in, which is safe, clear. We've got 2 retreats in February where the water will be
cold,
challenging, but yeah, the cold water is just we've done some. We're in a book called with Mark Harper. He's a consultant anaesthetist, and he's done a lot of waters around immersion. And actually, I'm going to ask him if he'll come on a podcast with you because he's the expert in it. But cold water is really a thing. But we see people on Instagram, and we do get people into ice water. But cold water immersion is the sweet spot's 10 to 15 degrees. It doesn't have to be really below. We do that just to challenge people a little bit, which is a good thing.
Bit of a
it gives you do that.
How hard am I? How low can I go?
Well, not for too long. You don't want to do it for too long, but anything under 18 degrees is cold water immersion.
Oh, that's good.
So that it really
that's a cold bath, basically, or a cold shower.
A cold bath, cold shower. Yeah, the cold shower's getting cooler now, but it's probably about 10 degrees, 8 degrees. But I'd say it is contraindicated with certain conditions. Make sure you check with your doctor. But I'd say everyone should try it because it's pain relief. It works on that endocannabinoid system, so it's natural pain relief. It brings down inflammation within the body, which inflammation is the biggest driver to all these bad things that we get, cancers and heart disease. So if you can control that through cold water immersion,
and it only takes
free.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
we're not.
2 minutes.
We don't advocate people hang around in cold water.
Yeah.
We're all about kind of trying to promote strategies and practices that don't take very long,
accessible,
that people can
normal
build
people,
in
day
to day, but has a huge impact on their physiology, which is what we're.
And when you see I was watching the rugby at the weekend, you see them lining up. You see a lot of elite sports people doing breath work. Yeah. They're just getting themselves into that state where they're ready to go, aren't they? And I think that's some way why a lot of people will have a go at it, because they sort of think, I can see how other people use that who for different reasons. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned, sleep.
Yes.
Miranda, right, which is really good you've mentioned that, because you've reminded me about something you said on the course about mouth tape.
Yes, and actually it plays into performance, not just sleep. So there was a Wimbledon player who came out onto court wearing mouth tape. Manchester City footballer came out onto pitch. Yeah.
So I've had a bash at it.
Yeah.
What did it do for you, Andy?
Stop me snoring, mainly. So my wife's very happy and wants to say thank you to you both for that, because it can't have been easy. Still not fixed, but quite a strange feeling. But also the benefits of nose breathing compared to mouth breathing. Books been written on this. People don't realise that breathing through your nose is so much better for you. And you were talking to me about you went on a very long run and you wore mouth tape to run 20 odd miles or something. Sounds crazy to me. But
50 miles.
Yeah. Well, to train, I didn't wear mouth tape on the actual run, but to train for it, I did it purely. But I'm really lazy, believe it or not, naturally. So I trained in the local park in Manchester, and my friend was a marathon runner. I was doing it with Stephen Lamb, and he was like, "You're not doing enough training. You're not doing enough training." And we just passed as Oxygen Advantage instructors, which is all about performance using your breath. So I'm like, this is a shortcut for me. So I really emphasis on just bad knees as well, jogging around the park, walking fast around the park, local park, using mouth tape. At first I said to Miranda, I said, I'm doing it. I'm just nasal breathing. She went, I reckon you're mouth breathing. So I put some mouth tape on as I was jogging, and I went, holy crap. I am.
If you can do it with that beard.
Exactly. Look,
so fortunately,
exactly.
I have brought
Brilliant.
I've brought some different types of mouth tape because I've been trying to persuade Nathan to have a bash at this. And he's been a bit reluctant. So I thought, what better opportunity? We've got the experts in the room. So I'm going to give him a choice of this one or this one.
I love this one.
This one. There you go.
It looks a bit more gentle, though.
Yeah.
It's a good starting point.
He's picked the one that's got a little bit of a gap in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is...
You two... Yeah. Well, one of you's got to wear it.
I'll wear it. Miranda's really good at explaining what.
And you're going to explain it. And I'm going to try the the bad boy.
Okay, you're okay.
This is
less facial hair, Andy, so you're okay.
So the thing is, we don't just recommend nasal breathing during sleep. We recommend trying to nasal breathe as much as you can. Yeah. Obviously, when you're talking, you're going to mouth breathe because we all take in our air through the mouth as we're kind of talking in that way. But nasal breathing will automatically slow your breathing down, which is helpful, and it will create certain benefits in the body. So you produce nitric oxide when you start to breathe through your nose, which helps to keep the lungs clean and to open the airways up and also improve blood flow. But when we're sleeping, we've got no conscious control over our breathing. Mouth taping will just keep the lips closed and promote that nasal breathing. Now, obviously, Andy, you're completely covered there. There's no chance of being able to sneak a bit of air in. Can you get in? No? Brilliant. So 70%, I think the statistic is, 70% of us mouth breathe at night, and it contributes to snoring, and it also means that we often wake up and we're just not feeling like we've had a good night's sleep. It keeps the stress response going, even when we're sleeping. So if you can familiarise yourself with nasal breathing before you take the tape into the bedroom and wear it at night, that's really recommended. You want to feel calm as you're breathing through your nose, but using that tape during those 7, hopefully, hours that you're sleeping will really help to promote that deep rest and all of the healing that goes on when we're sleeping. So it can take a little bit of time to feel.
It's an odd feeling at first, but I think eventually you get to do it even though you've not got mouth tape on, or you feel like it. One of the things you've got to watch for is if you do share a bed with somebody else and say something nice to them before you go to sleep, and then put your mouth tape on, then they decide to have a conversation with you. So you've got to get all that out of the way before you put your mouth tape on. Otherwise you're going to burn through your mouth tapes. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Yeah. But you use just like normal
micropore tape.
Tape. You'd have to buy these little bougie things off Amazon.
It's big business at the moment. I think a lot of people
of idiots like me, you see.
£2, everyone wants the Gucci version of it, but £2 micropore tape, Boots or Superdrug, whatever you want to do. I would recommend at this point, because this is how our Bible is a book called Breath by James Nestor.
Read that, it's
a
great book.
Just if anyone's not is watching this and they want to learn about it, buy that
Opens
book.
your eyes,
it
doesn't it?
Really does open your eyes. It's a real eye opener.
I think this is where this is an interesting, isn't it, when you're doing the mouth taping, because social media's got a lot to play in a positive way for how we've kind of become educated over the last few years, but also negatively, because this is where the challenge, and I don't know if you've found this in your world in terms of the practice, because what we kind of has seen, or a lot of feedback I've got, is that people, again, going back to the time issue, etc., there's this like perfect morning routine, and then we have a perfect evening routine. The perfect morning routine was this kind of like, I'll do some meditation and I'll do this, and people are pressed for time. And they feel that because if they can't complete for that kind of, in that volume or in that way, they're failing because it's social media says. And the same with like the cold water exposure that somebody doing, which I bought my own tub a few years ago. My first experience it was pretty horrendous. I went into a tub that was too cold and I couldn't breathe. It was basically, and then, but since then, it's become a very religious part of my life. It's interesting. I do mix it up now with saunas, and I have to say, during the winter months, saunas more of my favourite than it is the cold water. But from a kind of mental aspect, is what I've always found is that sense of achievement. And I've always found with these things, it's the power of the mind. In that when I first got my cold tub, I'd pace around it in the garden for about 5 minutes before getting in, convince myself, shall I? No, I can't. Yes, I can. No, I can't. And do it. And then it was that getting in. Then time went as if it was going so slow. So I think my point here is sometimes we've got to kind of put away this social media stuff that we see and look at what builds for the person and how it resets them, or what we can build as a toolkit. And sometimes it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be for this set amount of time. Sometimes we've got to start small and then build up from there. What would your advice be for people that, if we're starting as a novice in breath work? Where do they start, and what should they build to in terms of time, duration? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Where should they go?
I think Miranda hit the nail on the head earlier that, making that time in the morning for coherent breathing. And I think we should really touch on that quickly because it's the mainstay of everything. And coherent breathing or resonant breathing is the way we should be breathing day to day, which is around 5.5, 6 breaths a minute. Most of us are breathing about, don't worry if you are, because it's quite normal, between 12 and 20 breaths a minute. But you want to be at that. So the best way to do that is by timing your breath. So it's about 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. So if you can start to regulate your breathing lightly, slowly and deeply, engaging your diaphragm. If you can do that throughout the day, whenever you come to it, like a micropause, as we teach, throughout the day, if you've missed your morning routine, the worst thing you can do is beat yourself up about it. And that's what people do.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not worth it now. No, that's the worst thing you can do. So just every hour, just come to your, I've missed it. Okay, 2 minutes now. I'm on the computer or I'm sat in the car. I'm going to come to my breath and I'm going to count for 5 in, put my hand on my belly, count for 5 in, count for 5 out, and just check in. You're going to get what you need from just small micropauses. Sorry. Go on.
No. So I think it's an interesting question, and I guess it all starts with awareness, doesn't it? Like, how am I feeling? Yeah. And is this current feeling supporting me or not? And if it's not, that's where I say that breath work can really, really help. So if you notice that you are feeling a little bit stressed, you can slow your breath down. But equally, if you're feeling flat and miserable, you can use breath work to lift that energy and bring it up. So it kind of all starts with that question, how am I feeling? And tuning into that a couple of times a day or whenever. Like I will sometimes put a buzzer on my smartwatch that just nobody knows that it's going off. It'll just buzz and I'll check in. How am I feeling? How's my breath? Yeah. And I'll alter it. And typically that means slowing it down and breathing into my belly. But it starts there really.
I mean, we've talked a lot here about how this can help with the things that we all talk about in workplace health, stress, sleep, all this. The thing that we're really striving for is for people to be able to be compassionate to themselves and others, the families, victims of crime in our case. If you're a paramedic, it's somebody who's needing help from them. And that's what comes with this as well, isn't it? Because we know from our research and our surveys that when you're burnt out, your ability to express empathy and compassion is really limited.
Yeah.
Right. So I can remember being asked to go and do a death message. I've done like many police officers, not thousands, probably, hundreds, and sat in the car. I didn't physically remember doing this, but having to get my head straight before I went and knocked on the door, because that's a big moment for that individual or that family you're talking to. But for you, you're on to another job. It's in between other jobs. And I think what we're doing is this is something that people have probably already tried to think about doing, but haven't put a name to it and didn't know other people felt like that, and we're trying to do it as well. So, we're talking about in the ResetU app, we're going to have a breath. It's such a big deal for us, and we love what you folks are doing so much. We're going to have a breathwork pillar, right, which you're going to work with us on. We're going to fund some of the online courses to start with. We would like to fund them for everybody across the whole of policing. But that's a way, isn't it, how you can scale up. We've got 300,000 people here to reach. And to get the superb stuff that you do to a lot of people, you've got to use digital channels. That's what you do with your online course. But we also love the idea of the retreat. Yeah. We couldn't send 300,000 people to Anglesey. They'd sink the island, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? But it's making people aware of this stuff. Then they can go and try it for themselves, speak to other people who are trying it, access expertise like this. So that's an exciting part of the project that we want to work with you folks on. And having seen it close up with the officers that I was on that course with, I think it's got huge potential to make a difference in a lot of people's lives. And that's great for them, the families and the public, right?
I was just, as you were talking then, and every point you made, there's an anecdotal thing that was coming into my head.
Yeah.
And the first thing, right at the start of my journey with breathwork, I had a former Royal Marine friend of mine who was in the Armed Response Police in the Met then, and he just said, I'm at the end of my tether.
Yeah.
Do some breathwork with me. I don't know what it is. So I sat there with him online on FaceTime actually, and I do this, getting some cold water. Anyway, he rang me back 6 months later, said it's changed his life, but not only his life, he's been doing it with his team, and they're on the ground in East London, all that's the gangs and all the things that's going on there. And what triggered him in my mind was, he said, it's not just my team that's noticing it. There's an energy after we've done this breath work that the public are noticing it. They're more receptive to us because there's and that's what I thought. This is where the policing is really.
Do you know there's quite a lot of work being done on this, right? If you perceive somebody else as a threat, and they perceive you as a threat, you meet each other as a threat, And if somebody takes it down a notch, and the calmer and the more present, that brings the other people down in that interaction. So you've touched on something there that I don't think we talk enough about in today's. Society and today's environment, about how it's all just ramping up.
We go into next year, we're going to, as Andy said, we're going to work with you in terms of content within the ResetU app. So that's going to be exciting times. But before that comes out, how do people find you? Where are you? Are you hidden? You mentioned Manchester, but if we want to get hold of the Breath Connection, what do we do?
Somewhere.
Well, first of all, the website, which is www.thebreathconnection.org, and secondly, we're on LinkedIn, we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, we're on there a lot. And
I'm going to jump in there because we also, every Thursday evening, we do a 20-minute coherent breathing session, which is free for everybody. They just need to join our Facebook group, Breathe Don't Burn Out.
Breathe Don't Burn Out,
Yeah.
Facebook.
And on Thursday evening, you can join the session, cameras off, you don't need to have any indication of who you are, and just come, because it's fantastic for regulating, down-regulating before sleep, 9 p.m.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday. So, social media.
And retreats. We do a monthly retreat up in the Peak District, where you border of the Peak District, just outside Greater Manchester. That's a day retreat, and we do residential retreats, which is where the big work is. And we do get we get a lot. What I love about those, we have barristers, we have single mums doing a tough job, and we have senior police officers or a PC, whoever, but no one knows who they are. They just they come together as humans, and at the end of it, they go, "Oh, really? Is that what you do?"
I fancy one of those.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
You're
welcome.
So I might get hold of you, and it's been amazing having you both here. Looking forward to working with you, getting involved in the ResetU app as we go into 2026, and no doubt we'll be speaking more. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much.
Thank you.